So what night are we locking in?
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the new Carl's Driven Life. Tonight, we get our very first nighttime interview, which I get to use my little fancy lighting setup. But we'll see how all this goes, and whether or not we ever do nighttime interviews again will kind of be determined by how tonight's episode goes. So I have the distinct pleasure of riding tonight, or driving, I guess I should say, Rick Martin, who is the co-founder of a very interesting firm called Equal Reality. Rick, thank you for coming on tonight, and welcome to Carl's Driven Life. So tell me a little bit about you, kind of where you come from, and we'll figure out your accent here in just a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Carl. I appreciate it. And yeah, well, I'm from Equal Reality. My name's Rick. And yeah, what was the question you wanted me to talk about?
And so, tell me a little bit about where you come from. Your accent is what? Texas? No? Australia, right?
Yeah, Australia. I'm originally from Sydney. Actually, just south of Sydney, a place called Wollongong, which is about an hour drive south.
Okay, nice. So how in the world did you end up with Equal Reality and in the United States?
Yeah, it's been a long, interesting journey. Not too long. We started about 2 years ago. Myself and my two co-founders, Annie and Brennan. Okay. Annie's actually an American citizen. We all met in my hometown, Wollongong. I was visiting family, and I met these two crazy and wonderful individuals that are really tech-driven. They just come back from Silicon Valley, and they were making these, I think it was like the world first of what's called mixed reality games. And what you could do is play in augmented reality, virtual reality, and on your mobile phone all at the same time. So the person in virtual reality would be shooting an arrow to protect a castle. People would be attacking the castle with from their phones.
Right.
And then you could watch the whole thing unfold in augmented reality onto a map and watch it all happen, and the people in the VR shooting the incoming attacks. And it was just fascinating. I'd never seen anything like it before. I'd never tried virtual reality before, and it was just the most weird and wonderful thing. I was really curious, and I continued to explore. And yeah, after a long time getting to know them, I just had to get involved and saw the opportunity to really transform how we can share experiences with people.
Right.
And it led us to eventually doing these experiences in virtual reality, creating them for learning purposes. And we specifically work with now military and corporates, as well as governments, in creating and changing how we do learning and development.
So that is interesting. A lot of people think of virtual reality and, what you're talking about in literally in the gaming world. So how are you applying this to education?
That's a great question, because typically those skills in virtual and augmented reality, so just so everyone knows what augmented reality is, there's virtual reality, which is where you put the head-mounted display on,
right,
and your whole world is a digital interactive world. And then you've got augmented reality, which is say, glasses,
Okay.
and you can see the real world, but it has digital objects overlaid onto it, and that's
sense.
augmented. So that's only partially digital.
Is that like the Google? What was that? There was something with Google where you could have glasses, but maybe it was a camera or something. I can't remember that, but
There was Google Glasses.
yeah, that was it.
That
okay.
That was sort of like the absolute Pac-Man version of augmented reality.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
it sort of wasn't really actually augmented reality. It was more just like a Fitbit on your eye.
Ah.
It's wasn't really overlaying any digital objects onto the real world. But now you've got where my colleague or my co-founder Brennan came from, Meta, who created, or Microsoft HoloLens, who have these glasses that really can create really high quality digital experiences on top of the real world, and Magic Leap, and that's I think the most well-funded startup ever.
Right.
Biggest raise, and it's funded by Google and Alibaba.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you got all three of these. You've got the virtual reality, augmented reality, and then how does reality fit in all of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I mentioned with augmented reality, it's actually just digital objects onto the real reality.
Okay.
So the default reality, as we sometimes call it, because what is reality really?
Sure.
But you can also have augmented reality just through a camera or a phone. So much like glasses, you can see through the phone because you've got a camera on the other side.
Right.
And you can overlay digital objects like Pokemon Go. And that was a very primitive form of... but then Snapchat is now having all these really, all these companies and Facebook and all the rest are really making plays into augmented reality world. But I diverged there about
No,
the
that's
description.
okay.
Yeah,
It's still explaining the background, which for some people like me, is really necessary to probably understand the next step of education.
Yeah, but I'll go back to your gaming point. So those digital objects often are computer generated. Well, they are all computer generated, and those skills to create that computer generated environment or objects or assets, they come from the gaming world, and all the skills typically have been locked up in this digital world, and it's just a form of how this technology is being utilized, this virtual and augmented reality. And typically the gaming industry has been quite insular, and there hasn't really been a real use or application of this technology outside of that industry, which is a shame, because virtual reality, as we always sort of mentioned, has a real ability to give people experiences, and that's powerful, and it can be used in other ways other than just gaming. It's, yes, using those same elements, those same skills, but applied to just a different sort of industry. It's not just entertainment, it's for a real serious purpose.
So tell me a little bit about what your purpose is with this.
Yeah, so I mean, through my life, I mentioned to you the other night that I had, really sort of traumatic bullying experience in the workplace, and I mean, there was always talk about diversity and inclusion, but I don't think people really got the point of it, about being inclusive. And and for me, when I was obviously going through this period of exploration with the technology, when I first met Annie and Brennan, my co-founders, I just noticed how much of an experience it could give you, and I thought, well, if you can give experiences, what if you could give people just aha moments? They just got it, because it gives this powerful empathy. VR has been explained as like the empathy machine. And what if you could give people experiences so they could understand maybe how another person felt, reacted, or maybe allowed them to have an experience they couldn't have otherwise.
Right.
So I thought, well, we could give people perspective taking exercises that are, more effective than anything else, and that's what the research is showing. That VR experiences can be more effective for perspective taking than, say, reading a case scenario and having to imagine what it's like to be someone else, or role play acting and pretending, you're in this scenario, you're this person, imagine you're that person, and now let's play, how this scenario played out. And the purpose of this, what we call diversity inclusion training, is to change behavior, and it's pretty well established that to change this behavior you need empathy or compassion to sort of motivate that behavior change or understand what you need to do. So VR is a really, really powerful tool for this, and that's what we're using it for, and we're using it specifically for learning and development with organizations.
And so, the examples that we kind of went through the other night when we met at dinner, I know one that I, kind of jumped onto was the fact to kind of explain everybody, diversity and inclusion training, what we're talking about. If you've ever worked for any firm of any size, you've all been probably through some type of video, some type of handbook, some type of maybe even a sit-down presentation where someone in HR goes over how, we don't discriminate and we want, everybody to love each other and all of that kind of stuff. So what Rick is kind of talking about is learning about diversity and inclusion, but from a perspective of the actual individual. So to give you guys an example of what his company can do, they can virtually mock up, let's just say you can put on the skin of someone in a wheelchair and find out what it is actually like to be wheelchair bound and get around an office or get around in your day-to-day activities. So from Rick's perspective, what he's saying is that kind of experience is kind of takes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it takes a much deeper hold on the educational process and on the understanding, I guess. You actually get it a lot more when you're able to experience it virtually like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we call it, our experiences are to walk among someone else's shoes.
There you go. Yeah.
And, experience what it's like to be treated in a certain way because of who you are. And what does that feel like? And it just gives you a better understanding of really the issues involved and how it feels, the empathy involved in that, which is great to sort of really understand just the issues at hand.
Right. And so, kind of give me some feedback from what your customers who've actually, jumped into the program and gone, 100% full force into buying it and implementing it. What has been the feedback you've gotten from that?
Yeah, so we just had a big rollout just last month, and we measured the results with a company in Australia called Domain, and they're a real estate firm and they're a technology firm, and they had every single employee at their company, which was 780
wow.
people, all go through it, and the results were really powerful. We got an Nps score for the first time we ever completely rolled out an entire company so a net promoter score is how much would you recommend this course or this product or this service.
Gotcha.
And it was anything above 50, because it goes from negative to 100 to 100, and we got a score. Anything above 50 is excellent, and we got a 67.
Wow.
Which is around the world-class mark, and which is amazing because it was really a testament to just how powerful these sessions became due to the VR experiences. And what we really found was from the experiences, everyone really had a common shared understanding of the issues and the topics involved.
Right.
But they all had a feeling that came from the experiences.
And the emotional buy-in is probably the most powerful.
That's right. When we had the facilitated discussions that came after the VR experiences, and everyone, it was fascinating to listen to everyone how they described their time in virtual reality, and they were talking all in feelings. I felt excluded. I felt like the manager should have included me more, or I felt like I felt intimidated. I felt all these sort of really strong feelings, and it was fascinating for us. It was even stronger than we expected, and the sort of general consensus with the data that we collected was that there was a deeper engagement with the topics involved.
Right.
And that was important because the whole goal of all the workshops was to instill into the DNA of the company diversity inclusion as an important thing, so everyone to be more inclusive, because traditionally they had issues with not being like that, and it really shifted the dial, which was significant. And as a result, we're releasing a case study in a couple of weeks, and we think it's going to get a lot of traction and interest because it really is a bit different to how it's ever been done before. And traditionally, like you mentioned before, it hasn't been so effective. It's often been more tick box
exactly
than really effective learning.
Yeah, the HR managers are more or less, you have to do this, and the employees are like, well, we have to do it. And it's just a check box that you make, and you really probably never really learn anything from it. So kind of give me the next iteration of equal reality. You know, you've got this applied to the diversity inclusion world. You know, what other possibilities does this kind of platform hold in other areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're actually building on the back end is software to simulate humans and social circumstances. And what our technology has started to evolve into with our customers and who we're working with is not only do we have a perspective taking exercise where you can become someone else, be treated in a certain way, but now we actually have these branching scenarios where you can choose your response, and each response has a consequence. And what you can do with that is a lot of things. It's what we've started to create is essentially like a fire drill for these social interactions. So how do you have a difficult conversation? How do you reprimand someone, or how do you maybe deal with an issue as a bystander in the moment, and essentially, you know, get a safe place to practice and a safe place to fail and a safe place to understand.
So it's almost like a flowchart decision tree sort of thing where you make this decision and this occurs, and if you continue down that path, this occurs, and then you learn exactly like you said in a safe space. Wait a minute, I just violated this person's civil rights, or, you know, that definitely was not the discipline versus coaching route that I intended.
That's exactly it.
Right. Yeah, that is really, really wild. I never thought about it like that, because, I mean, I've been a manager of many, many employees, and some of those discussions are very difficult to have, and you're literally having them in the moment, and you really never know what the employee is going to come back at you with. And there's been a couple of times that I've kind of had the whole deer in the headlights thing of, well, crap, what do I say now? So that is really interesting. I didn't realize it was going to go that far. So is it just the three of you now?
No, we've actually grown, and we're continuing to grow. So we've doubled the size of the team full time, and we've got on some amazing people. So we have Chris and Allison and Paul.
Okay.
So Chris and Allison tend to focus on the actual creation and design of these instructional pieces of simulation.
Right.
And they really work with the clients to co-design them. So essentially they get the story that is being told from the experts themselves, or those who want to tell the story, and they translate it into this virtual reality simulation. And Paul is really focusing on the technical ability to produce these simulations. So he's helping Brennan build this software that we use to actually generate these scenarios.
So let me ask you this. So, you know, you're generating scenarios. You can basically go into a company, whatever their policies and procedures are, and they can help, you know, by I guess the discussion and the teamwork, you'll build this product around how they want the decisions to be taken care of and answered and things like that.
Absolutely, that's exactly how.
So it's completely customized to whatever the organization needs.
How I see it is like literally the first time that you have a policy in action. So you've got to practice that policy, because every company has a policy. No one really reads the manuals. This is how we deal with these conversations.
Right.
How do you actually practice that behavior? What are the actual steps to doing the policy, putting it in action, essentially?
Okay.
And we sort of, you know, we work with, you know, these experts around the learning and development to translate it into something that is, you know, a safe environment, ability to practice behavior, something that's been proven to work. You know, exposure therapy is excellent in virtual reality for many different sort of applications, whether it be fear or whether it be just the purpose of it is just to understand and be exposed to that situation, whether it be a difficult conversation or a phobia or even PTSD. It's been an amazing tool for PTSD.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. And you just said a phobia. You know, somebody that's maybe afraid of spiders, like one of my best friends is, you could actually work through a safe space of knowing it's not real spiders, but that is astounding. So the applications of this type of medium are, I mean, in my brain, I'm actually beginning to say almost endless.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you can give experiences. It's a tool to give experiences, and there are really some powerful uses of that technology to solve really powerful problems.
How about that?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. You said you've doubled the size of the company. You've been in America for 4, maybe almost 5 weeks. How, tell me what is the transition from Australia to America, and how are you, what is it here that is working with you to make you guys a success?
That's a great question, because so we're part of an incubator called Halcyon.
Okay.
And it's an amazing social impact focused incubator for technology startups. And we came to DC specifically because we thought, well, actually America's feeling a lot of pain at the moment with these issues of diversity, inclusion, in different ways.
Right.
Politically, socially, there's a lot of tension. I noticed when I got off the plane. It's a difficult thing to talk about here, and I'm not sure how I actually bring it up here yet. But everyone seems to want to talk about it as well, which is fair enough.
Right.
It's on everyone's mind. And so the timing we see is pertinent, and we see DC specifically is kind of like at the heart of all of it,
right.
Really at the moment. And it was a hypothesis. We took a risk. We thought, there is a need for what we do potentially much greater, at greatest here.
Right.
So we're here in DC, and we're forming partnerships and building reputation, and it looks like we might stay here for the indefinite future.
So Halcyon is an area or a facility that helps you guys with the basics and gives you a place to work and grow. And then when do they kick you out? When do you get too big for Halcyon?
Yeah, well, they actually let us work there for however long we need.
Nice.
Which is awesome. They also give us housing there as well, a place to stay, which is incredible.
Oh, wow.
Georgetown.
I know we're in Georgetown, and when you told me that, I was like, really? You get to live in Georgetown? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's an incredible experience, and the network around it. So that lasts for 5 months.
Okay.
And then that's a good period of time for us to maybe assess whether DC actually is the place we want to be.
Exactly. Yeah, it gives you that time to you've tested the hypothesis enough by that point to know whether or not it's viable, and this was the great decision, or whether or not you need to go somewhere that maybe not as controversial and has as many issues to throw it around. So that's really neat, Rick. So 5 years from now, if you could define success for Equal Reality, what would it look like in 5 years?
That's a really good question, and there's a few things on that. So I think the big goal is we really just want a more effective way for people to have compassion for others, and we feel like this exponential technology, which will become more and more exponential, or just go further along the exponential curve, but will become more present, more ubiquitous, and can be used to solve this problem, or at least be a powerful form of learning, and really progress this ability to share experiences. And we essentially want to revolutionize education in general, and specifically we want to focus on diversity and inclusion, because we feel it's a great use of this ability to share experiences.
I absolutely agree. I mean, the ability to put on the shoes and walk in the shoes of a minority, or someone of a different sex or orientation, or like I said, someone in a wheelchair, that is just something that you just can't get out there right now.
Yeah, and ideally in 5 years, this is being used by, Facebook just came out saying they want 1 billion users of virtual reality.
Wow.
And so we see this as absolutely going to have a massive impact, a massive social impact. So, and that happens through scale. So ideally the goal is in 5 years, this is scaled out as a standardized best practice for giving people experiences for this purpose of learning about others.
Right. So that is just amazing. And I'm going to apologize to everybody really quick. If you guys have never been to DC, you don't really understand that there is not one single smooth surface in the entire district. And Georgetown is one of the worst, which is where we're doing this interview. So you guys have probably been shaken about quite a bit tonight, and that's okay. It is what it is. But I just wanted to apologize to everybody real quick because I realized how bad the roads were. So Rick, how, if people wanted to find out more about Equal Reality and what you guys are up to, how would they find that?
The best thing is to check out our website. It's equalreality.com.
Okay.
And we've got all press on there and everything about what we do. And we're hopefully going to be updating our content soon with some new mixed reality videos, so filmed with a green screen in the background so people can see what's happening in the virtual reality environment and how the reality environment is interacting with it.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a computer generated, like a tool that's been used in the visual effects industry for a long time.
Sure. Okay. Nice. All right. Well, guys, that is Rick Martin, one of the founders of Equal Reality on Carl's Driven Life. And Rick, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. As you guys know, Carl's Driven Life is on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I've already talked about the fact that I had to change the name from Uber Life, but Carl's Driven Life is where you can subscribe, find out more information about what I've got going on. Monday, I have a great interview as I interview the most interesting people in the Washington, D.C. area. I've got one of those that is going to definitely fill those shoes for you on Monday. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. It's going to be pretty doggone cool. So Rick, thank you once more. EqualReality.com and Carl's Driven Life. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next ride.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.